Postman has grown a lot in popularity over the years. While some people are learning Postman right now, longtime users discover that Postman is now more than just an API client. So today, I wanted to show you how you can use Postman like a pro and avoid some rookie mistakes which can save you hours of frustration. So let's begin with copy-pasting parameter names and URLs from API documentations. While this in itself is what you should be doing to avoid typos and spend less time typing, not everyone will notice that doing so can introduce unwanted characters in the address bar or in the parameters. Postman will show new lines or spaces, but they may not be so obvious. You just need to train your eyes to spot them better. Notice this. Here is a space and here is a new line. We don't need them, so make sure to remove them. This also applies to any kind of data you write in Postman. Now, if you don't fall into the trap of copy-pasting unwanted characters, you may fall into the trap of writing query parameters in a way that the server does not expect them. Here's an example. State, which is a query parameter, written with the first letter in uppercase, is not the same parameter as state with all letters in lowercase. The difference may seem small, but it isn't, and it can be confusing. As you can see, the response is still returning items that are open, even if we thought we had set a filter to get only items that are closed. So the way you write parameters is important. Also, don't invent parameters that the API documentation does not mention. They will certainly not work regardless of how you write them. Now, I can understand that query parameters can be confusing, considering that HTTP headers can be written even in an alternating case, but hey, this is how things work with HTTP. And since we're looking at headers, it's probably time to report a bug. Editing these auto-generated headers doesn't seem to work. Actually, that's not a bug at all. Maybe the UI could be a bit better, but you can change those values. Just go below and type the name of the header you wish to change and provide a different value. Postman will use that. Our problems with sending data don't end here. We often need to send some JSON, and for some reason, the API doesn't get it. Can you spot the problem? Good. It means that you know how valid JSON should look like. Be careful when interpolating Postman variables, as the editor does not know the data type. This may look valid in Postman, but because it is a string, it needs to be surrounded by double quotes. Now finally, we got this API to work, so let's write some tests. Again, it seems Postman is out there to get us. What is with this undefined thing? Everyone can see the property in the response, only Postman sees a problem. Actually, if you look closely, these square brackets, they're pretty small, but they tell you that you have a list of objects, not just a single object. So let's try by getting the first object only. Now this is still failing, as the property in the response is name, written in lowercase, and not as we have written it. If you're struggling to get this to work, learning about data structures like arrays and objects in JavaScript will be a good start. And since you're learning so much JavaScript, also make sure that your code is doing what it's supposed to do. Like, for example, when you write a test, make sure that it will also fail. This one should check if the status code is 201, but the status code is 200, and the test is still passing. Another Postman bug? Not really. pm.test takes two arguments, a string with the name of the test and a callback function containing the assertions. This test will never fail, as no assertions were provided to the pm.test function. The function call was closed after providing the name of the test, so essentially it contains no assertion, only the name of the test. Let's fix that and give it another try. Wow, this looks so much better, and now our test is working properly. Some people tend to overdo it, ending up with a bunch of code that doesn't work and desperately ask for help. Before you end up there, Break down your problem into smaller steps that you can fully understand. You cannot use Postman for complex scenarios if you don't understand some basic concepts in Postman, like working with Postman variables and writing JavaScript code. So spend more time learning about these concepts before you jump into solving your own problems. Knowing how to debug your requests and code is critical. Make sure you use the Postman console to inspect the HTTP traffic and use console.log to get the value of any variable or expression in Postman. If something doesn't work as expected, simply put a console.log statement in your code to understand what is going on. Now, after we have mastered coding, let's look a bit into security. Often, the APIs we work with rely on API keys, tokens, or other credentials. It is best to store them in Postman variables, as this can prevent accidentally exposing them when sharing a collection with someone else. People often get confused about the initial value and the current value. The initial value is what others see when you share a collection or an environment. The current value is private to your account, and others cannot see it even if you share your collection. This is also the value that's being used when you send a request in Postman. Since we have figured out everything so far, it is time to automate things. Let's introduce Newman, the CLI tool that can run Postman collections. But there seems to be a problem already, and the collection is not running properly. It was running just fine in Postman seconds ago. What's going on? I think this is really a bug. Let's take a quick look at the URL. Do you recognize this notation? Yes, it is the syntax for Postman variables. And if you see something like this, it means that the variables were not resolved. The first culprit is forgetting to export the environment if you have used one. The second culprit is forgetting to set the initial value to something that Newman can use. Remember what I said before? The initial value is what gets shared. When you export a collection or use the Postman API, you are only sharing the initial value, not the current value. If things still don't work, use the htmlextra report from Danny Dayton. It is not only pretty, but also a damn good debugging tool as well, as you can inspect requests and responses and figure out what's going on. And since we're so deep into automation, make sure you don't create multiple collections and expect to merge the collection runs in a single report. If you need a single test execution report, put everything in a collection and use folders to structure your requests better. Last but not least, don't use Postman or Newman for performance tests or any kind of tests that involve sending huge amounts of requests toward an API. This is not what Newman and Postman have been designed for, and they don't work as you think they should work. I hope this was useful and has helped you better understand how to avoid some of the most common errors and misconceptions while working with APIs in Postman. Did I miss anything? Let me know in the comments below. And check the video description for additional links that can help you learn more about Postman. If you want to support me to make more videos like this one, like and subscribe, maybe click that thanks button, and I will see you next time.